Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
Annie F. Downs is a New York Times bestselling author, sought-after speaker, and successful podcast host based in Nashville, Tennessee. Engaging and honest, she makes readers and listeners alike feel as if they've been longtime friends. Founder of the That Sounds Fun podcast network, which includes her K-Love Fan Award-nominated, 100 million downloaded, aptly named flagship show, That Sounds Fun, and the wildly popular and deeply meaningful Let's Read the Gospels podcast, which has exceeded 10 million downloads and launched Single Purpose League, a Patreon community for anyone who's unmarried. The league includes a monthly podcast episode and a regular chapter meeting hosted by Annie, among other membership premiums. As an author, Annie has sold over 1 million books, including 100 Days to Brave, Remember God, and That Sounds Fun. And no matter the topic, shoots straight and doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, always finding her way back to the truth that God is good and that life is a gift, and is dedicated to creating thoughtful content that resonates with a wide audience, ranging from her fellow faith sojourners down to her many BFFs. Annie is a huge fan of laughing with friends, confetti, soccer, and boiled peanuts, preferably from a Backroads, Georgia gas station. She has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, on Good Morning America, the Today Show's Wellness Today, and more. Read more at AnnieFDowns.com and find her embarrassingly easily all over the internet as Annie F. Downs. We are so excited for you to listen in on this rich and inspiring conversation between our dear friend Annie and her wise, honest, inspiring sister Tatum. Well, this is such a treat to be with the two of you this morning. And we get to have a beloved friend here for how many years do we think we've been friends?
I moved in with the Fleeners in 11. So sometime after that, 12, 13, a decade.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
And a delightful new friend that I just found out that the three of us are all in the same Enneagram family.
Enneagram ones all day.
Sorry to say.
I know,
Wow.
right?
Annie, get that overwhelmed.
Annie, we need you.
Wow.
We need
We
your
desperately need
seven.
you.
So
And I don't need y'all to tell me what I'm not doing right. So this is going to be great.
We will not.
No, I'm just kidding.
And I love that y'all are sisters. That is something
15
very
months
close
apart.
to my heart. Wow.
Tiny amount.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was a surprise. Turns out. Yeah.
Okay. Well, a wonderful surprise.
Yes.
Well, we'd love to start with y'all talking a little bit about what life was like in the Downs home growing up.
So, like I said, I'm the oldest. There are three of us. Tatum and I are stacked real close together. And then about 6 years later, we have another sister named Sally. We grew up in a Christian home. Parents are still married, which is such a gift. And we grew up across the street from our grandparents, across the driveway, actually.
Did y'all really?
Yeah,
shared a driveway.
Yeah, we shared a driveway. So our whole lives, we had our grandparents just right there, which was really fun. My mom and my grandmother were best friends, so she was over all the time. She would meet us sometimes as we were going. It's a longer driveway. And we would, do you remember this? We'd walk into the bus to get on the bus to go to school, and she would meet us with sausage biscuits.
No.
Even though we had for sure eaten breakfast at home.
Y'all,
But
that's
It was
amazing.
the best.
What was her name? What
We called her Ma.
Ma.
Her name was
and
Ruth.
Colonel.
Ma and Colonel, because he looked just like Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
No, he did
So
not.
cute.
Nothing
Did
to
y'all
do with
name him that, or did he come
Our
up with it?
father,
Yeah, Dad did.
Mr. F. Downs,
Yes.
is the one who did that.
Dad named it. Yeah.
Colonel.
So Ma and Colonel. I never knew how to spell Colonel my whole life. I mean,
It's
even though we
tricky.
called him that, I could never spell it correctly till I was far into adulthood.
And our other
hard.
grandmother just lived like 15 minutes away, and she was over all the time too. We just had a very
We were
fortunate.
very lucky to have
family
grandparents
life.
around all the time. Yeah, it was really fun. People who would be like, I have to travel to see my grandparents was so foreign to me, because our grandparents were at everything. They were always around. We saw them at every Sunday. I mean, it was.
And
really
our
fun.
house was like the hub. So the cousins came to us.
Yeah.
Cousins and aunts and uncles always came to us because we had the grandparents right there and our house. And so it was really great. We had such close relationship with our cousins.
As we grew up, my parents ended up helping raise a couple of our cousins and kind of being the parent voice for a couple of our cousins. And so that's been really impressed. I was really impressed. I mean, we were all out of the house, and
Such a
they
gift, yeah.
brought one of our cousins in after they were empty nesters and finished her high school career for her, and really helped helped her become who she wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so it was really impressive.
We
But
call them our cousin siblings.
yeah, that's right. We do all of our holidays with all the cousins because there's
An
my
annual
parents'
family
parents
vacation.
Yeah, our big fam vacay, which
Wow.
actually, one of the things we'll talk about is Tatum and her husband losing their son, TJ. TJ's death was one of the things that really instigated us all going on vacation together
Yeah.
because we kind of went like, what do we do? We only see each other at Christmas. How come?
Yeah.
Why do we only see each other once a year? So let's see each other twice a year. And so now we do Christmas and summers. But we grew up in Georgia, grew up in a Christian home, went to church our whole lives. And so as the oldest, I never totally I never totally felt like I fit anywhere. And now that I see my calling on my life and what God's invited me to do, and I kind of get a little more, I was kind of the black sheep without being a black sheep, without like really getting in trouble. So, and we were really close in age. We're really different in a lot of ways. And so it took us a while to figure out we didn't get along great as kids.
That's a very nice way to say it.
Yeah. So
What a hopeful thing for any parents listening whose kids are struggling right now.
People
that
used to
you
tell
are.
our mom all the time that we would be friends, and she was like, I don't know. We'll have to see about that. But it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's
a
was
huge gift.
Yeah, it was a lot of internal work for both of us, I would think. For me,
so.
I can't speak for
No,
internal
you're right.
work, but there was a lot of work as a grown-up of figuring out, you can tell as much as your story as you want to, but we really mirrored the prodigal son story pretty significantly in our upbringing. And we both rode our roles really close.
Mm-hmm.
And so older brother stuff comes real easy for me. And so it just took some time of me doing work to let go of older brotherness as best I can. It still is my lean toward. If I'm going to lean toward one of the brothers,
Me too.
y'all know this, but when Jesus told the story, he didn't say, now I'm going to tell you the story of the prodigal son. He said, a man has two sons. It was always a story about two sons. And our story has always been a story about two sons. And so, but our parents are lovely and kind, and we're very lucky. Yeah.
Oh, so lucky.
I haven't ever met your parents.
Really?
I would love to
Oh my
get
gosh.
to.
Yeah, we need to
we
fix
gotta
that.
fix that.
Yeah, we'll fix that next time they're in town.
Yes. I would love that.
Thank you for telling that, you two. Thank you. And we want to continue talking a little bit about your growing up. So we're about to talk about a book you've written together that we absolutely love. But before we do, we want to ask you both, was there a book from your growing up that was particularly meaningful for you, and why?
Okay, so this is like when I was thinking of my answer, it's like almost a little embarrassing because it's not that great of a book, but I was a really bad reader. It was really hard for me. I didn't, like, my mom will say that they didn't teach me to read right in school or something. I don't know. But like Annie was an avid reader, and even our little sister Sally loves reading. And so in that way, I was kind of the black sheep. Like, I was just not very good at it. And one day I read Roald Dahl's Matilda, which is a big book, but I was like, oh, it can be fun to read. Like, and so it's not like that book, like the story is like fine. It's a cute little story, but it's not like it has this like great meaning of the story, but it meant a lot to me because it like showed me that I can read and that it is enjoyable. And so
Which
that
is
was
so important
Yeah.
for kids.
Indeed.
Yes,
Totally.
something that ignites that.
Reading was really escaping for me. When we were little, there were times where
you are free to share as much as you want. Honestly, like literally share as much as you want.
there are times where I needed to go read somewhere quietly while Tatum was with our parents.
Heavily emoting and very loud.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, I will go close my door and let the three of them work out whatever they're working out. I mean, I was probably 7 and 8.
Right.
I was young and figuring out like, oh, okay, she's a little tornadic. Sorry. She's a little tornadic.
It's all true. It is all true.
And so for me, the older brother stuff, well, I'm going to go over here. And so I read all the time. And so like Harriet the Spy, starring Sally J. Friedman as herself, these like younger reading chapter books, I just would drop in the bathtub all the time. They just had wrinkled pages constantly.
Wow.
Right.
And so reading for my whole upbringing, and still, I mean, it is such a peaceful thing for me because whether it was at home or when I was in college or even as an adult, when my emotions get high or when I feel unsafe isn't the right word. When I feel
Dysregulated?
sure, when I feel dysregulated, reading will really help me
Yes.
to kind of get back to, let me get in the story. Let me
Yes.
slow down a little bit. So reading was like such a gift. It was my go-to a lot. And we weren't allowed to watch TV, by the way.
Yeah. Only
It
on
was
the weekends.
Only on the weekends.
Or
Or
if we
Dad
snuck in to watch Andy Griffith.
was watching Andy Griffith. If
Y'all
we
are
would
so rebellious.
sit through Andy Griffith, we would get to watch.
I got a question for you, Dad. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
just, You
And
don't
other than
move.
that, the TV didn't turn on in our house till The Cosby Show on Thursday nights. And then we could watch on the weekends. And other than that, there was no TV. So it was like read or play outside. And I think our parents did really well. I think they did a lot really well, but they really did teach us how to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like, y'all can do whatever you want. They actually didn't care if we played together. They just cared that we were doing and we weren't bored. And so
Or they kind of didn't care if we were bored. If we were bored, they'd be like, well, figure something out.
yeah. And so there wasn't, whereas there are some families who are real sports driven and team driven and we're team whatever, my mom is a lawyer, my dad's a CPA. And so they are independent. Their strength is independence. And so they taught us how to independent play pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. But I was quite a hard sister and daughter. Like I was very rebellious, very disrespectful, very out loud in all of those things. And when I was 12, I got like radically changed by Jesus. And my mom will still say, this is the prodigal-y part, that like if she never sees Jesus do anything ever again, the way that he changed me is enough for her to believe that he is who he says that he is.
Wow.
So like the amount of pain and disruption and chaos that I caused in our house was large. And then it's not like it like instantly got better at 12, right? But it is such a gift that I'm thankful it was 12 and not 22 or
Yes.
32 or
Right.
but I think that's the power of praying parents and grandparents that and I think we've seen that with our cousins too. The power
And
of
some of
praying
the
grandma.
older brother stuff, because I was like, oh, now we're fine with her?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Do we remember yesterday?
Yes.
So it took me some time to be like, oh, okay, so she's really different.
Well, and at that age, you're not old enough
I'm only
to really
13.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So I'm like,
Exactly. You can
sorry, I'm
process
in
that.
8th grade.
Right.
And now everybody's,
Yes.
she's nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were always nice sometimes. But,
No, I wasn't.
but it was, that was the trouble for me. And that's where what I could have done was celebrate like my mom did. There was a better choice than what I did as a teenager of going like, ugh, well, I remember. So everybody else is going to forget. I'm not going to forget. And so there was a better choice for me then.
Well, not a lot of 13-year-olds
Yeah.
thinking of better choices
That's right.
on much of anything. And y'all, I just hearing you talk about that, David and I have been talking so much lately about the changes that we're seeing that are concerning right now in the world. And one of those is the degree of people who are just writing off family members.
Yeah,
They're
the
just
going
done.
no
They're
contact.
toxic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
know there are toxic family members. We know healthy boundaries are important. All those things are true. And there is always going to be conflict and there are always going to be hard things. And the fact that you all are who you are in each other's lives now, just am so grateful for everybody who's listening to hear that and know that and to experience a little fragment of the redemption that's
It is
happened.
true hope for parents who are listening,
Yes.
whose kids fight all the time.
And siblings that
and
are
who
still
don't get
coming
along.
back from the prodigal son story.
Absolutely.
And Sam helped a lot, the 4-year-old.
Sam and
And-
TJ's life really
Yeah, they
changed our relationship dynamic big time.
and changed our family. I mean,
Yeah.
TJ's death deeply changed our family
Yeah.
in some beautiful ways.
Right.
Isn't it amazing
And
how
so
grief does that?
We're on the 2-year journey
Yeah.
of a new family for all of us.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Yeah.
And I would just throw in, which I feel like y'all probably have both read, but I would encourage anybody who's listening to read The Return of the Prodigal Son by Henry Nouwen because
Yeah.
it is so convicting in so many spaces as you're thinking about where you fall along those lines. Well, we're excited to talk about the new book. That's a hard word to say. Grateful to get to talk about the new book.
that's what we say a lot, Sissy, is we don't want anyone to need this.
Yeah. We
hope
wish we didn't
Yeah, we
need
wish
it.
we didn't need it. We hope every single family who could possibly needs this gets it.
Well,
Yes.
and there's not a who could possibly. Every single family, all of our
Yeah.
lives have been touched in some way or another.
Yeah.
So
So thank
grateful
you.
you
Thank you
wrote
for
it.
helping us share this with your people.
Well, the book's called Where Did TJ Go? A Book for Kids on Grief and Loss, which just is such an important topic. And will y'all share a little bit about the story that brought this book into birth?
Yeah. So my husband and I have our 4-year-old Sam. And when Sam was about 15 months old, we found out we were pregnant again, which was a huge miracle. We had walked through recurrent miscarriages and even a failed IVF before we had Sam. And he was like a miracle, spontaneous, like totally unexpected, but very much hoped for and prayed for little boy. And then we found out we were pregnant again. And it was such a gift. We were really grateful. But just 12 weeks into our pregnancy, we found out that TJ was really sick. So he had a life-limiting diagnosis that there really was no hope for outside of a miracle from the Lord. And most babies who have this diagnosis don't even make it to birth. And then the ones who do, the vast majority die within a few months, and a tiny percentage make it to a year. And then the very rare cases are able to live longer than that. And so when we found out at 12 weeks that he was so sick, one of the things I was processing with my therapist was, how do I do this with Sam? How do I, it was honestly, as soon as I got off the call with the geneticist the day we found out, and the first thing I thought was, what about Sam? And I actually was just sharing with y'all that the Lord reminded me in that moment that we all have places of such deep pain and expectations that are unfulfilled in life, and that is where he meets us, and that's what he would do for Sam. But beyond that, I wanted to do everything I could do as a mom to walk him through this. So I asked my therapist how I could do that with him. And she said, well, maybe you could find a book to read. And so I was like, oh, great idea, because it's so helpful to have someone else's words to use that line up with what we want him to experience, and the truth we want to convey to him, and the hope in the midst of this pain. So I, of course, call my author sister and I say, hey, can you find some books? Because in my small search, I couldn't find anything that was answering the questions we had. So I called Annie.
Right. And so there I am as the aunt in the story, right? Going, okay, yeah, what do we do?
Right.
And so thank God for y'all, because I called y'all and y'all didn't have a book. I mean, you had some recommend, but you're like, we don't actually have.
Great. Yeah.
And I called my college best friend, is also a family counselor. And so I called her and she didn't have any answers. And so I Googled it and I couldn't, I was kind of like,
yeah,
how in the world? I mean, there are some resources, but there wasn't, what we were really hoping for was a gospel-centric resource. And what we thought would happen, what doctors thought, it's this weird tension to hold that I'm sure every family has held, of like, your sister or yourself in Tatum's case is pregnant. The doctors are saying one thing, we know who God is, and there could be a whole different story here. And so how do you hold both?
Yeah.
And how do you prepare yourself and your family and Sam? And I'm the oldest child. So there's a lot of, what do I need to do for mom and dad? And what do I need to do for Tatum and Sally? And what do we do for Sam? And so there is, as we got closer to TJ's birth, we thought, and what happens a lot with this diagnosis is you have hours, maybe days. And so we ended up having 2 months with him, 56 days of him, 3 weeks in NICU is what you said?
Yeah.
And then 5 weeks on hospice at Tatum and Jacob's house, which was really such a gift. So many more days than we thought we would have.
Yeah.
And man, I don't know if we've told this story yet, but I think my dad would be fine with us telling this, but the weekend that TJ was deteriorating quickly, I was home in Atlanta. And one of the things that I'm sure y'all have told before, but a resource said to me, when a child is dying, don't leave the parents alone with them in the home. Don't let there always should be another adult. Have we talked about that?
No,
there should always be another adult in case there needs to be a conversation later of, it was not your fault. It was not your fault. I was there too. And so my sister and I rotated, especially the sicker TJ got. If there weren't nurses there, we rotated who was there so that Tatum and Jacob were never the only grown-ups there.
Yeah. And my mother-in-law stayed with us the first like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes.
She stayed with us and woke up every morning at 5 a.m. with Sam, who was
after they had been up all night, right? Because TJ required, and we were happy to give him 24-hour care. So during that week, I go back to mom and dad's to get my stuff. And I said, I'm going to go sleep at Tatum's because TJ's not doing real well. And my dad hands me a letter. He says, will you read this to TJ? And I said, in absolute no world am I reading that to TJ. Tom, get in the car. If you got a letter for your grandson, you're reading the letter to your grandson.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not going to read it, but I will take it with me. But but the whole family was coming over the next day. And I mean, TJ's 2 months old and dad sits down next to him and we're all playing with it. We have a lot of cousins there. It's like a big family day. And mom and dad are sitting there and dad reads this letter to TJ. And TJ is staring dad in the eyes.
Locked in.
And mom's sitting there and takes this picture. And so there's this picture we have of dad reading to TJ looking straight at him. And you're like,
in his eyes.
That kid is understanding every single thing that his grandfather is saying to him.
Yes.
He understands everything. And he died 3 days later. Wow. I mean, it was unbelievable. TJ, I was telling David earlier that I would FaceTime a lot when I wasn't there. And every night, I still do. I eat breakfast with Sam every morning. He knows how to put my makeup on perfectly because I put my makeup on every morning.
He actually does. The other day, he started like using one of his toys to put makeup on his face. I'm like, what are you doing?
Because he watches me every morning. But Sissy, I FaceTimed TJ the night before I was coming to Atlanta. I was like, hey, I need you to stick around, man. This is going to be the best weekend of our family. We're having steak. Your cousins are coming. And sure enough, he did. He did exactly what I asked him to do.
Wow.
And he stuck around. That was a Saturday and he passed Wednesday morning. And so it was just, the whole thing is the worst thing we've ever been through. And also just it is the worst thing we've ever been through, period.
Yeah.
It is also been just an experience that marks you in every single way. Yeah. It marks you in every single way. It marks your family. It marks your friendships. It marks I mean, I was joking with y'all, like, I have a lot of fear about taking Sam somewhere by myself because I'm like, well, I can't, there's no world where I'm going to be a part of anything happening to that guy, you know? And so
it marks your relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
There's no aspect of life that this doesn't touch.
Yeah. I mean, I would, especially when he was in the hospital, we had Sam at mom and dad's. We were doing Camp Sally Annie because Tatum and Jacob and TJ were at the hospital and we were with Sam at mom and dad's. So we had summer camp every day. I bought a pool. Y'all can't imagine.
An inflatable pool.
What did I not do that week? I was like, what do you want? Fine, we'll have a pool.
Such a gift.
Fine. Camp Sally Annie was extraordinary. The budget was extraordinary. Unreal. It is not sustainable budget.
Financially and energy-wise.
Yeah. Camp Sally Annie is not sustainable. But I mean, I would get in bed every night and be like, Jesus, he is still here. You can still change his story. Every night I was like, what are you doing? You could change this. And so it marks you forever of going like, I asked for that and he didn't do what I asked. Okay.
And he could have.
Yeah. So
it's complicated.
And now we're going to take a little break to hear from one of our sponsors who makes this podcast possible.
Hiya, Sissy.
Well, how do you?
No, I'm saying hiya is the answer. Hello to you, of course. But are you tired of battling with your kids to eat their greens? Hiya now has Kids Daily Greens plus superfoods, a chocolate-flavored greens powder designed specifically for kids packed with 55-plus whole food ingredients to support brain power development and digestion. Just scoop, shake, and sip with milk or any non-dairy beverage for a delicious and nutritious boost your kids will actually enjoy.
We love Hiya. My nephews are bananas about them. Hiya sends a fun bottle with stickers to decorate in the first order. They keep one at my house, and their morning ritual includes finding it and taking it. Hiya fills in the most common gaps in modern children's diets to provide the full body nourishment our kids need with the yummy taste they love.
Formulated with the help of pediatricians and nutritional experts, Hiya is pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, C, zinc, folate, and many others to help support immune system, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and more.
Hiya is designed for kids 2 and up and sent straight to your door so parents have one less thing to worry about. One of my favorite parts.
We've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/RBG. This deal is not available on their regular website.
Go to hiyahealth.com/RBG and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults.
I want to ask you both just what do you hope kids and parents and aunts and uncles and grandparents can take from this book?
I'll answer first as the aunt in the story. I mean, I wrote it for Sam. That's what happened. I was driving from Franklin to Nashville, and so 20 minutes, and Tatum was getting ready to have TJ. And I mean, and I was just trying to think, how do I help Sam? And we haven't found a book. I write books. I can do this. And the whole thing downloaded to me. I mean, it's been edited. Tatum worked on it. That's why she's the co-author. I mean, we've made it right, but the whole thing downloaded to me.
Pretty great from the start.
And thank you. And we like printed it out and laminated the pages and used clip art and made it for Sam.
Wow.
And then it was kind of like, we're not the only family who needs this, sadly. So my hope, David, is Mom used to have this thing, she called her gift closet downstairs. And if we ever needed a teacher gift, or if she would grab 3 candles and whatever. I hope people put 5 of these in their gift closet.
Me too.
And just when someone has a miscarriage or a medical emergency or a stillbirth or any kind of tragedy, any kind of death of a sibling, that they go, oh, okay, I know exactly who needs this.
Yes.
And we already have it in our closet. That's what I hope happens. And then, they have a unique seat as the aunt. It isn't my kid, but I really care. It's my family.
Yeah.
And so even reading it back now is healing for me too.
Yeah.
I think adults need to read kids' books.
I agree.
They need to remember. And we need the simplicity. You talked about actual and factual, right?
Yes.
Like, adults need the simplicity of a kid's book. So that's my hope is that I'm thinking about all the people who need it. So I need all of our friends to have 5 copies on hand for when they need it. Tatum, you talk about what you hope for parents.
I think one of the greatest gifts that this book could be to parents is just to have a tool, something they feel like they can offer their living children or child, and something that kind of takes the pressure off of them from like creating the words to say and coming up with the words to say. But ultimately, I think that what we hope this book does is to remind parents and teach kids about the hope of being with Jesus and the eternal hope that we have with him.
The story gets so much bigger when a kid dies.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like
eternity gets so much more real.
It's kind of a crass sentence, but my understanding of the world changed drastically when TJ died.
Yes.
And then you're just like, oh, this is the short part. And I've said that for years.
Right.
But then you go like, no, this is really not the end of it.
Yes.
And we don't talk about the good stuff coming enough as believers. Like, I don't think we talk about heaven enough and what God has for us. And there's a lot we don't know, but there's a lot that we can know. And so I just hope that this book piques a curiosity in families for that and gives them, like, it is just losing a child is like the most guttural pain and it's awful. It's one that you wouldn't wish on anyone. And to have something that could give you a tiny glimmer of hope in the midst of that, or help you hang on to hope in the midst of that. I hope that this book can do that for other families.
Our illustrator, Jenny Poe, did a beautiful job of putting other kids on every page. So there is this, like, this isn't just what happens with TJ. TJ's not the only one. There's a lot of There's everybody that isn't on earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? There's a lot of people.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And so she just, I think she plugged in and snuck in some beautiful truths that aren't even in the words. That when kids are just looking at a page, they're like, I could ride on a giraffe someday. And we didn't say they could ride on a giraffe, but there goes TJ riding on a giraffe. So maybe, like there's just a couple of things even in the pictures that hopefully will say to kids, we're direct about TJ died and so we're direct about that. But there's also these little nuggets of what am I seeing right there? And that is the gift of a talented illustrator who believed in the power of how this could help families and churches and schools and
families. And in a season where you have no words.
You have no words. You have no capacity to think of words.
No.
You can't remember the words you once had.
Right.
it was so robotic.
Yes.
Like we were all just robotic for
Yes.
6 weeks or something. I don't know. Well, yeah.
Congratulations being robotic
Oh my
for only
gosh.
6 weeks. No, just
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no,
right.
but
yeah,
yes,
like
it's
I mean,
different,
it is, and it's so different for everybody. Grief is so
And I got
different
to
for every
leave,
person.
remember? I mean, part of the thing is I got to come back up to Nashville because in the midst of TJ's life, I launched a book.
Yeah.
And we had
had
decided,
massive knee surgery.
yeah, and we had decided as a family that my public life would not know about TJ.
Yeah.
That we were just going to keep it private while we saw how his life played out. So I'm
There were
driving
so
back
many
up here,
unknowns. Yeah.
and I'm launching a book, and I'm just doing. And then every night we're calling nurses, and we're doing all the things, and so because of that, the gift of that for my personality was I also got to eject from the pain for a couple of days a week, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And so I also got to come back up here and okay, let's do it, and then go back into it, and most of my family did not get to do that.
Well, I would say personally, which I don't know if you know this part of my story, but my mom had 8 miscarriages before and after me.
Wow.
And almost lost me. The only reason I'm here is because my dad was working at the Naval Academy Hospital. And so she was in the hospital with me from when I was 3 months along till I was born.
I did not know that, Sissy.
And then bizarrely, Kathleen comes along when she's 43. And
yes,
there's
16
not an
years
issue.
later.
Yes, not an issue. But, it was a different time when I was growing up, but I never knew.
Oh, no.
Did not know until I was probably an adolescent. And I think, what a gift this book would have been
Yes.
to our family for me to have gotten to understand, to be a part of my mom's world in that way. Just all the things that I could have learned that.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, Sissy.
Yes.
What is the gain of a child knowing about that when they're a kid? What's the gain of that for the kid?
Well, I mean, I think obviously in Sammy's situation, he was a part of this journey with you all. I think with miscarriages, I mean, here's my hunch of what probably happened in my family is I bet as an only child, intuitively, I knew something was really wrong. That both sides, that I knew there was probably some joy, then some fear because 8 miscarriages in, I'm sure my mom, as soon as she heard the news, was terrified. And then the grief that my mom, I know now, really more after her death than ever during her life, how impactful it was. But I'm sure that I knew something was wrong, and kids think it's their fault.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, you are connected with your parent in a way you probably wouldn't have been otherwise. You have words, you have understanding of what's going on emotionally. Y'all, what an incredible gift.
Yes.
Wow.
And my mom, one of the things that we did the night my mom died is she would kill us if she knew this, but my brother-in-law went and got her phone and went through all her notes in her phone.
Wow.
And one of the things that she had was and my mom did not talk about feelings ever, but there was something she read at some point where George W. Bush, who, lost a child, there was some quote he had that said, "I love you more than tongue can tell." And my mom had that in her notes.
Wow.
Still at 76, I think she was when we lost her. And, just what a picture of it never, it impacts you forever.
I was I was finishing the next book I'm working on at a hotel in Vermont. And
That's lovely.
What a life.
Was great.
Right.
It was, well, listen, because, I live part-time in New York and all my friends are there and Central Park is there and Broadway's there. So I can't get my work done.
Yeah.
So I was like, and Vermont was my 50th
Enneagram
state.
7 problems.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm going to drive 3 hours and lock myself in a hotel and be there for 2 days. So I'm going on a Monday, Tuesday, right after peak leaf season. So it's dead. They don't even open the restaurant. I didn't know. Choices I would have made differently had I known. But, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm sitting in it's an old inn. And I'm sitting in a shared living space with a fireplace. I'm the only one there. And I'm working. And this woman who works at the hotel comes over to me. She said, I hear you're an author. And I said, yes. She said, and she had helped make sure I got the room with a desk, which was really generous. And I said, yes, I'm just finishing this up. And I said, I actually have another book. And I tell her about where did TJ go? And she says, 32 years ago, I lost my daughter. And she tears up.
Wow.
Sure.
And she says, and tells me the whole story about her daughter, tells me her name, tells me everything about her. And I was like, I believe. And she's just I'm sitting on the couch and she's just standing beside me and just talks for minutes, which I was honored by, absolutely honored by. And she finishes and she's like, thank you for letting me tell you my story. I said, thank you for sharing. She leaves. She comes back 15 minutes later with a massive tray of cookies. And just sets it in front of me. If you need, I just thought you might need these. If you just need anything. 4 muffins. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I just thought 32 years later, she wants a copy of Where Did TJ Go?
Yes.
Because she's still the mom who lost an infant child.
Yes.
And that was so moving to me to remember that there's a chance this book will serve her.
Yes.
And my peers and people who, a lot of my friends, I'm mid-40s, so a lot of my friends have teenagers, but we walked through them having miscarriages and child loss when we were younger. And so it was just, it's your mom. It's your mom, this woman in this, that works at this inn, making sure people get the right room for their needs is just like your mom of like, this does not leave your story and, or your center of your heart.
Right.
Her daughter is in the center of her heart 32 years after her infant death.
Yes.
Which I think one thing that's been so interesting for me and probably not surprising for you professionals, but our second miscarriage was my most traumatic loss. We had a little girl named Hope and I delivered her at 14 weeks and the amount of new layers of grief I've had over Hope since Sam was born and since TJ was born.
Because Hope was perfectly healthy.
Hope was perfectly healthy, no genetic issues. They have no explanation about what happened. And among all of our babies who are in heaven, the rest of them we know had massive genetic issues that were unexplainable. So it doesn't ever leave. And we talk, Sam knows he has a big sister Hope and a little brother TJ.
As you can imagine, the sign, it's a little confusing still.
But he knows they're both with Jesus. And he actually asked us the other day, he was like, Mama, didn't you say Jesus was in heaven? And I was like, yeah. He's like, but the Bible says to run to him. I was like,
wow.
Yes, sir. That's a literary technique. I don't remember what it's called, but we'll learn about it later. But it doesn't ever leave. Your sweet mom, those 8 babies.
Oh, Kathleen and I talk all the time about when we get to heaven, we're going to be like,
the party.
Family.
She'll be like, I'm glad y'all are here. Meet all your siblings.
Yes. That is going to be so sweet. It is going to be so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many things we've already said that grief and loss teach us. And whatever the grief is, whatever the loss is, we all each talk about one thing specifically that you would share that you've learned.
I think I think the thing that surprised me the most is the way it has sharpened the colors of everything. It is actually being in such, my life in that season, I'd had a pretty painful breakup at the beginning of the year. Everything kind of went gray for a while for me. We know TJ's sick the whole year, so that's an overlay. I tear up my knee. We have a tragic situation happen at church that I need to be a part of leading through because I'm one of the teaching pastors at Crosspoint. And my knee, church, and TJ died in 8 days. And so it was, I've never experienced anything like that. I literally, the night my knee tore, was the Wednesday before TJ died the next week. And I laid in bed and I said to the Lord, I can't do the life you're handing me with 2 legs. I promise you I can't do it with 1. So you've got all night long to fix this. And I look forward to seeing. I mean, I was not making an ask. I was making a very clear, like, unsubscribe to what you've just offered me because I can't do this. And I woke up and it was still ripped. And so I ended up having surgery a couple of weeks after TJ died. So all of that is that season for me. TJ is the most profound of that for sure. But there was tragedy. I didn't have an untouched area of tragedy in that month. So everything got sharper. The good things have actually gotten brighter. The beauty, the things we do have, the people we do have has gotten brighter. The fear of losing them has gotten sharper. For me, that's the work I'm doing is like, I'm scared of death all the time now. And not just in Sam, but particularly in little people. And so that's sharper for me. Purpose is sharper for me. Like, okay, then let's run. Like, if the enemy's going to steal, kill, and destroy, watch out for me. I mean, 3 months after TJ died, 2 months after TJ died, I got a sword tattoo. And kind of to be like, nah, dog. That doesn't win here. I'm the girl with the sword tattoo. And so I am, everything is sharper, including the sword on my forearm. So
I feel like I could talk for hours about this one question, you know, because it's been 8 years of loss that we've been walking through so far leading up to TJ, but 6 years leading up to TJ. But I think so much of what I have learned in loss has to do with how I walk with Jesus in it, and the how, like, for me, the deepest intimacy and trust looks like saying hard things to him and asking hard questions and not trying to make my questions better or myself better to go to him, but just being really raw with him. And kind of like what Annie said too, the power of choosing him in the midst of the pain and loss, and how powerful that is. Like the expanded view of the goodness of eternity with Jesus has been, I think, one of my favorite lessons of it.
And I mean, part of where did TJ go is in some ways our family's response to the enemy trying to let death win. And we go like, yeah, no, man, watch this. This little guy that lived 56 days is going to be in thousands and tens of thousands of homes.
Yes.
You know, like, no.
With the hope of Jesus.
Yeah, that's it. He came,
Going
the
with
back
them.
half of that verse is, but Jesus came to give us abundant life.
Yeah.
And so I feel pretty profoundly excited. I know it's a funny word to use in this conversation, but every time this book ends up with someone who helps, that's such a good reminder to the enemy that he does not win.
Yes.
That this story has a good ending, even though it has a sad middle. And I love when he loses. And so it feels very like, yeah, this book will be the help that it'll be the help and the hope and direct you to the real hope. I mean, I want people who don't know Jesus to know Jesus through TJ's life.
Yes.
1000%.
And that is, again, not the best word, but that is fun to me.
Yeah.
We get to do work that
It's the redemptive
honors,
part.
Yeah, it's the redemptive part of all of this, that we get to do work that honors TJ life, that honors Tatum and Jacob and Sam, and that takes my skill set mixed with Tatum's skill set to put a resource in the hands of families that need hope. That is, we could not have done this 2 years ago when TJ died. This was not something that we were immediately able to find the meaning and the purpose and the next thing to do. And we don't know if there's a next thing after this. This isn't the start of a thing. This is like, no, here's the thing that says there is hope in this story. And we're going to be glad to have it. And we're going to be glad to share it. So it feels like taking that grief and not exchanging it, because I don't think it goes anywhere. But I think saying, okay, if I purchase grief, my bonus purchase was meaning and hope and purpose that I will use.
Mm. Okay, we have a question for each of you individually. So, Tatum, I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
What encouragement would you give to parents who are on a similar journey right now?
I think the first thing I would say is just hang on. Like, there still are days, but there were so many days where the only thing I could do was hang on. And I actually got so much encouragement from, in Ephesians when it talks about the armor of God and says, and having done everything, stand. I'm like, I can do that. There's a lot I can't do right now, but I can stand. So just hang on and to find people and to lean on your people. So not find them. They're probably, you already have the people there, but to allow them to take care of you, even if it's like.
And to take care of your kids.
To take care of you by taking care of your kids. Even if it's like I do not, with the Enneagram 1 with a very strong 2-wing, hospitality is one of my main things. I am not accustomed to being cared for. And you kind of also just get tired of being the one who needs to be cared for. But letting people do that because you do need it and it does something powerful in the body of Christ too. But I think too, I just know when you're in that, it just feels impossible. And like you're never going to be without this super huge pain and you kind of don't want to.
Yeah, I remember you saying that you kind of didn't want it to go away.
Yeah, you don't want it to go away. It's this like weird thing that I think grief is so different for everybody, but a weird thing in grief is wanting to hang on to the pain because it's your only connection to them. And so to know that just as you hang on, that there will be a day when the pain feels different and you are still connected.
Tatum, what did you need from Annie?
Oh my
through
goodness.
this process?
Listen, what
as an aunt, I would certainly want to know.
Okay, what I didn't even have time to think of what I needed from my family before they jumped in and did it. I mean, I can't tell you how fortunate I have felt and so grateful. Like Annie jumped in and she handled my carrying bridge. She handled my meal train. She found us nurses when we were home with TJ and there was a miscommunication about us having nursing help. And then we ended up not having nursing help, which is just a very hard job and very tiring and emotionally very heavy. And so Annie found us nurses. Like she saw every practical need and just jumped in or said, can I insert myself here? Can I do this? And did it. She managed my calendar. She was even texting my friends like, hey, did you want to go over on this day? Do you want to do that? Like she was totally managing every part of my life. It was such a huge gift. Between that and, coming when she was there, she would play with Sam. And for Sam to get to have fun and undivided attention was a huge gift that, all of our family did that for us.
Our other sister, Sally, plays with Sam all the time. She was stepping in and handling so much as well. I did a lot of the signing things. Yeah. Sally told everyone when TJ passed because she was the one who was there.
Well, and my mother-in-law gave up her life for weeks. And she lives in California and she stayed with us for, I think she was here a total of 5 weeks of his life. And so we were just served so I think that, that's what I would say, the practical things that my brain couldn't even think about.
Yeah. My favorite class in grad school was grief and loss. And I remember I loved our teacher and her saying, you show up with toilet paper. That's what you do, and so the fact, which is not a surprise that you would step in with so much practicality and help and strength. And
also my Enneagram 7 also allows me to shut off sad emotion pretty easily, which really serves in that.
Yes.
Because everyone else is built different. And so I also was able to do some things of we're getting nurses in here. And just kind of bulldoze because God made me that way first. I'm not great if you need to have an emotional conversation. I'm great in tragedy and in trauma. I can power through. So I'm thankful God made me that way. It has served me. When I was teaching school one time, in the classroom across the hall, a kid got hit in the head with a chair and the teacher passed out.
Wow.
And the kids came and got me because they were like, Miss Downs can handle it. Like that's
Yes.
just kind of been, and so I'm grateful God made me that way. And in this area, it's helpful.
Yes.
There with that, we had another friend, one of my best friends said, I'm going to come every Wednesday. I'm just going to be there. Whatever you need, we'll do. And so like when you said to bring the toilet paper thing, she did laundry.
Wow.
She reorganized my pantry. She arranged the flowers that people sent because I'm terrible at that. And she's beautiful at that. And so just having a friend who she was just going to be there.
Yeah. It was very helpful. She had her same block on the calendar every week. I was like, thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Take your block.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about Sammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, one of my favorite job, period, of my life is getting to be an aunt. It's just the sweetest. And as God does forever ago, I read this book called Mrs. Miniver. Have y'all ever read this book? There are a lot of great things about it, but it took place during World War II, and it's just, I don't even know how to describe the book, but it has a lot of really rich truth. And there was this section of the book that stayed with me, and I don't even know why. I mean, I have an aunt that I adore, but I don't think it was about her, but it's about being an aunt.
Yeah.
And I want to read it to y'all because it makes me think so much of you. So they're having this conversation, she and her aunt, and she's talking about something. And the aunt says, "What on earth do you think I'm here for? I should like to know." And the book goes on to say, "To be a pattern and example to all aunts," thought Mrs. Miniver, "to be a delight to boys and a comfort to their parents, and to show that at least one daughter in every generation ought to remain unmarried. Raise the profession of auntship to a fine art."
Yeah.
And then it talks about living in proximity, which you make work, even though you don't. But I think you have raised the profession of auntship to an art.
Thanks.
And I love watching you do it. It's so sweet.
It's a real gift.
Yeah.
It's a
You just
gift
don't
to
know.
me.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Oh.
mean, I've always loved my friends' kids, and so I thought it would feel like that. I thought, I know what it feels like to have kids that I love, and I do deeply love a lot of these, all these kids that are in my life. But yeah, it is different when it's your sister's kid. I mean, it just is a little bit different, or my cousin's kid. I feel the same about some of my cousins. No, I feel the same about my cousin's kids, and it is just a wild. It's just a wild other thing that he kind of looks like you, and you kind of go like, those are the genes of our family. And Sam's the first one of that generation in our family, and so he's awesome. He's a trip, man. He's one of my best friends.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Would you, even diving deeper into that, Tatum, would you talk about just the difference you've observed Annie making in his life and the role an aunt plays? And then will you talk specifically about what you've learned in that space too?
Yeah, of course.
So I think I have really loved watching my sisters become aunts to Sam. Like Jacob has a sister too, and we have a brother-in-law, and they are great aunts and uncles to Sam as well. It's so fun when we get to be there and be with his one first cousin on that side too. But it's been so fun the way that, Annie said she has breakfast with Sam every morning.
That is
They
amazing.
FaceTime before school. They FaceTime before bed. They have this whole imaginary world.
Oh yeah, I was telling Sissy about it, about Muddy Puppy.
Oh yeah, Muddy Puppy and all of his friends, and they create all kinds of scenarios where, Sam is busy, and it is I'm so grateful for FaceTime. Like, I get to take peaceful showers because Annie and Sam are building a zoo for Muddy Puppy and his friends via FaceTime.
Yeah.
We have a lot of companies. It's hard to keep up with.
There's a lot of companies. There's a lot of companies. There's a lot of toys out in my house all the time because of the companies. But it's such a gift to have them being so willing to invest time with him. And to be a place, because still we are, we're 3 years on from TJ's diagnosis and 2.5 years on from losing him. And there are still days that are hard for me to show up in the way I want to, and moments that are hard. And so to know that he has this place to have fun, to basically do improv, there's a lot of yes ands in the like the improv way. And I just don't always have the capacity for that, or the energy, honestly. And so to have them being able to, and Annie especially with her FaceTime Muddy Puppy world.
He's in the book, by the way. This is an Easter egg. We put Muddy Puppy in the book. So when everybody sees Muddy Puppy, they know he's actually real. He's not real, but he's a real character in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think aunting is a unique thing because, and I mean, now I get to talk. I mean, Sissy and I have talked about it a lot. You talk to other aunts and you go, has this been like this for y'all this whole time? This is unbelievable, you know? And some of my other single girlfriends, we really bond over this of talking about like what it means to get to love our family in the next generation. And so I'm really grateful for it. It is, I've joked with Sam, like I don't read my Bible in the morning anymore because I have to talk to Sam every day. So I've really, my schedule has changed. But I mean, there will be a day. I mean, I experienced this with the Barnes kids. I think y'all have had David and Annie on. So I feel, and this would be true of Rachel and Winston's kids too, the Cruises. What I've experienced is when they're 3, 4, 5, they want to hug you and sit in your lap and talk to you and FaceTime. And then Ben Barnes is 13. And he and I adore each other. I'm dear to him. He is dear to me. He's not 4 though. And there will come a time when Sam will not want to FaceTime me.
It won't be anytime soon.
That's
Don't
right.
worry. Won't be
but there will come a time where he will develop into a young man and I will still have a role, but it won't be this. And I think the gift of having walked a version of this with my friends' kids, like a Ben Barnes, is that I have walked the transition to being I'm now a grown woman in Ben's life who loves him and is a friend of the family and is family to him, but it's not the same relationship as when they're tiny and they ride on your back at Disney World and it changes. And so I'm aware that will come. And so it makes me really grateful every day that it isn't here yet. Like, you know that with Henry, right? Like they'll change, they'll adjust.
Yes.
And that'll be really good. And he'll be a great adult and we'll be great friends and I'll love it. But he won't be 4. And we won't talk about Muddy Puppy and Yellow Fluff and, you know.
You will. You will always talk
we'll
about
always have
that.
Muddy Puppy. That's right.
And
We'll always
Annie,
have
your
Muddy Puppy.
love will have marked that guy
No kidding.
in such an incredible way forever.
Yeah. It'll be, I can't wait to hear him be like 25 and be like, I mean, we worked on cars. We worked on a barge. We just had a lot of, we ran restaurants, you know, it's like my aunt is insane. Yeah. We've had a farm a couple of times. We currently have an inn. Needs a lot of work though. So we've got a lot of people working today. The mice are cleaning. So
that's good.
Don't worry. We built them a table to eat at, but they are cleaning all the rooms. We got to turn it over for the holidays.
Well, I feel certain this imagination goes way back for her.
Oh, big time.
So since you're here, will you tell us one little Annie story?
Oh, yeah. What do you got?
Okay, so I was trying to think about this. So one Annie story is that she used to pretend to be a teacher.
Yeah. Before
that was like a big
teacher.
deal.
Yeah.
But like, I think one of my favorite stories, because as we said, our relationship was complicated. But when we both lived, so in my parents' house where we grew up, there was upstairs with just 2 bedrooms and a small little hall between. And there would be times when it was, bedtime, but we would each sit at our door and drive shove our Barbie cars back and forth to each other because we weren't allowed to leave our rooms.
We weren't allowed to leave our rooms, so we were sitting on the
cute.
edge.
Right at the edge and just shove
it was probably
across.
5 feet between the 2 doors.
Yeah.
But
it's not far.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
We have no desire for this conversation to end. We can keep you 2 hostage all day long.
Thank you for having us.
We'll respect your time.
Yeah, well.
And simply remind folks, Annie, I think even going back to what you talked about on the front side, like you want copies of this book on the ready. You want these in the gift closet. So you can hand this over to a family at any point. You want several copies. We can't urge you to do that enough.
Well, I also want to tell people that you wrote a letter in the back, David, that is so generous of you, that also helps families, because we wanted expert words in there too. And so having you give us a letter in the back that goes, okay, now here's what you do. Here's some questions. Here's some tools and some resources. It's a gift. So thank you.
It's a joy to be associated in any way with this great offering, you all. So thankful you did it. So thankful you did it. And Tatum, we end every episode with something food related. We've asked Annie these questions, but Annie, we do need to know if your answers have changed. So listen in, okay? Tatum queso or guac. And what's
Queso
your
all
favorite
day.
taco? Okay.
So all day, unless I need to be healthy.
Yeah.
And then you go to guac.
Yeah. Listen, good fats. Lots of vitamins and minerals in an avo.
Fair.
But yeah, give me some cheese dip it's a deep emotional need.
Yeah.
And it every time. When I'm sad, that's what I need. Some chips and cheese dip. Yeah. And my favorite taco?
Yes.
Taqueria Tsunami in Marietta, Georgia has there's two, and I have to get both of them every time. A Korean short rib taco with marinated cucumbers and a fried fish taco with their like kind of spicy coleslaw situation.
Oh,
that sounds amazing.
thank
It's a
you
good
for
combo.
that.
Yes. Y'all come. Let's go.
Yes.
We'd
Yes.
love it.
Come to Marietta
Listen,
some.
yes, sorry, this probably isn't podcast, but aren't y'all coming to Atlanta soon? Somebody in
yes.
2025?
Yes,
Yes.
in May.
May. Okay,
Yes.
great. We'll get tacos.
We'll get you
That
some
would be
tacos.
so
We would
fun.
love
We'll
it.
get you some
Love
tacos.
it.
I have a taco story. I've been saving to express to you.
Please.
There's a place in New York called Playa Betty's, and they have birria tacos.
Dylan Dreyer was on our podcast and talked about this place.
It's so delicious. 74th in Amsterdam, something like that on
Okay.
the Upper West Side.
Okay.
And I've transitioned from birria tacos to birria tachos.
Ooh.
So it's tater tots and
Oh.
queso and birria on top.
No.
It is unbelievable. So I sit down last week and I say, I don't see it on the menu, but can I get the birria? And they said we removed it from the menu.
No.
Tragic.
I said, you mean the last time I had it was the last time I had it? I didn't know it was the last time I had it? They said, yes. I was like, that is bad news, Bears. So I've been really thinking about this because I've had a sad taco story as of late. I know.
Story.
You can't just take away my burrito like that. You didn't even warn me.
No.
You didn't even give me you didn't say we're changing the menu and we're taking off the meat that changes everything.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of becoming a burrito taco connoisseur. I'm tasting them every time I see them.
Okay. ABC Cocina
No, I haven't been there. What?
in New York. ABC
I
Cocina.
haven't. Okay. Oh, great news.
Write that down.
It
Yeah.
might redeem some
Yeah.
Okay.
New York Mexican food.
Yes.
Yes.
Great. ABC Casino.
Yeah.
Thank you. Done.
Thank y'all.
Love y'all.
Thank
Thank
you.
Conversation.
So
Just
sweet of
what a
y'all to
gift.
have
Yeah,
us. Thank
being
you.
with
Really
the two of you.
Yeah.
David, what a team we have that we get to call friends who help make this podcast possible.
Amanda Young, our operations manager.
Chris Starrett, our engineer.
Our management team at H Squared.
And we are thrilled to be a part of the That Sounds Fun network.
Our music was created by the insanely talented Dave Haywood of Lady A.
And if this podcast felt helpful to you, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, all the things.
We are grateful for you and cheering you on always.